Thanks for coming out, everyone. I know Simran mentioned that it's been a rainy day, rainy Saturday today. So I really appreciate you guys sort of waking up early, traveling from wherever you guys have, and taking the time to come here and to share, to hear me and Simran and others basically talk about what we've been doing and what we're passionate about. So as Simran mentioned that we're going to talk about design today mostly. We've been working on lots of different things around design, for about 10 years now. We've experimented a lot. We've basically learned a lot along the way, and I'm going to be sharing some of that with you all today. So we're going to talk about design with context, and over the course of this talk, you'll know a little bit more about, and hopefully the goal is be able to design more sort of intuitive, more sort of easy to use products that your customers and people at large will be able to use and appreciate. So a little bit about me. I started my career as a programmer. I worked with a small company in Dubai, back in 2000, early 2000, and having dabbled with programming a little bit. When you're working on a small company, you end up doing everything. So you're sitting and writing code, you're going and talking to clients, and then you're coming back and then also helping design the interfaces a little bit better. Once I joined DirectEye, I started building products and helping DirectEye design products, etc. And my latest engagement, I now sort of manage two of the products that we talked about, Flock and Ringo. And if I get a chance, I'll probably talk a little bit about some learnings there. I had the experience and the opportunity to set up DirectEye's first ever design team. When I joined DirectEye, it was a 30-people company, much different from what it is now. And I had the pleasure of sort of working on almost all products and interfaces that you see with DirectEye today. Some of the businesses that you might see here, some of you all might sort of have used some of those interfaces and products that we built. And then if you have any sort of complaint or feedback, you can catch Simran now, not me. No, but yeah, so I think many of those products, those screens, that you guys might have seen at some point in time, hopefully used and enjoyed using at some point in time, were all built initially by a small team, that I worked with to sort of build those interfaces. So let's talk about user experience and design, and let's set the scope of what we're going to talk about today. So at the base of everything, at sort of the fundamentals of everything, user experience and design is nothing but making things intuitive, so that people can understand, easy to use, so that people can sort of get around, find their way, and sort of use those products. Delightful, we don't sort of wake up and look forward to using a software, right? So, oh, I love that button on that website. I really don't, but it wouldn't hurt to make it delightful, to make it basically enjoyable while people go about their business, either sort of, booking a ticket online, making a reservation online, finding information on your website and so forth, right? And at the end of it, getting the job done. This is my favorite thing to talk about when somebody talks about, oh, but this, I can make this better. Can I perfect this animation? Can I make this even more beautiful? Yes, you can do all of those things as well. But the first and most important thing that people come to basically use your products are to get things done. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking that, oh, I love the animation on that website, let me go check it out, right? Nobody starts their day like that. They want to find some information. They want to book something. And it's really about helping people do what they actually set out to do by using your product or your service, right? That's really the ultimate goal of design. I look at design also and overall sort of product building, not just about creating screens or using graphics and so forth, right? Actually, you know what? Before getting here, I just wanted to, with a quick show of hands, how many designers here who do hands-on design? Raise your hands. Okay. How many design managers who manage teams of design in some form or the other? Okay. And how many sort of founders, co-founders, managers, and so forth? Okay, great. So I think we all, as it's obvious that wear different hats and are also involved at various different phases of product and are sort of intimately involved in sort of designing things. Okay, so I look at every level, as an individual designer, as a design manager, as an owner of a product, that when we create products, it's not a job that we do. We come in, we design some graphics, we make things look beautiful, and then go back home. What we do, as product designers, as product makers, as entrepreneurs, is basically create stuff that people use every day, right? And if we do not have an empathetic approach to creating things, it upsets people, right? Have you ever seen, your family members or parents or grandparents try and use technology and get frustrated with it, right? And they cannot figure something out. And if you just sit back and observe, you'll realize, we face it all ourselves, right? When we try and use something that's not well designed, it's frustrating to use, it's stressful to use, right? At the end of the experience, we don't want to do anything. We wasted 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour of our lives, and we've come out with an experience that's reduced our quality of life and not made it better. So to me, it's more of a responsibility we share. It's not as if, I'm selling you a piece of bread, at a shop, and I'm making $2 in the margin. We're not in that kind of a business. We're in the business of making. We are craftsmen. We are basically entrepreneurs. We share a responsibility of serving people by helping build things, that makes their lives easy, that makes a difference when they end up using our products, and hopefully, create a valuable change in their life. Let's talk about, something, and we'll talk about, some products that you've really enjoyed using recently. Like any tool, any service, any product, could be a hardware, software, website, anything at all. Anybody. If you have something that you used recently that you really, really enjoyed using, and you came out saying that, oh, that was nice, or that was easy, or that was fun, or I didn't expect that to work that way. Anybody? Could be anything. Yes?
I tried out blocks on the Mac, Blocks app.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. It's just got these blocks you can just keep adding, and you can do a wireframe or a layout.
Right.
In fact, it's actually meant to do a whole website, and it outputs HTML and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, we used it for wireframing, so I just tried it out day before yesterday.
Right. And what specific thing that you liked about it?
How quickly I could do the wireframe. Probably in like half an hour, I finished the website wireframe.
Nice. Nice. Great. Yes? Right.
That was pretty nice. You can just use it, WhatsApp for web, and you can really use WhatsApp as you are using it in your cell phone.
Right.
From the web. That
Right.
was really
Pretty interesting. Yeah, it's nice because we spend a lot of time at our desks, and pulling out a mobile, now and then is annoying. So it's convenient to basically be able to use, right when we're sort of on the desk. Anything else?
You are having navigation with that.
Right.
So you can go wherever you want.
Right, right. Pretty cool, right? So, we talked about one idea, something that made somebody do something better, something, they were able to achieve something easier, quicker, faster, which made them, better in terms of the tool that they use. We looked at an example which was great in a context that person was in, where WhatsApp for desktop, so I'm on the desktop context. So I'm going to really enjoy using it and not have a sub-quality experience. And then just a general experience where it's a new technology. It's basically making you see things in a different way, right? So when we talk about these things, we either are talking about making users get better at something that they're doing, or making their experience of something that they do every day just simply better, right? So these are the examples that we remember when we talk about these things. There are frustrating experiences also, and I remember that in cases, where we've tried to use something that does not work the way we expect it to, and that's sort of those times we realize that, okay, having that product work the way you imagine it to would create so much of a better experience for us. So I wanted to take this opportunity to try and see that if we can, instead of just talking about something, we can try and go through a few steps that we do internally, within DirectAv when we design products, and see how that experience would feel like to actually create a product. So to create a product, what do we need, right? We start with an idea, right? The first thing we can think about is a client comes up with a problem and we say that, okay, that's an idea, I can solve that problem. Or as product designers or as entrepreneurs, we say that, oh, that's a problem worth solving, right? I think that's really, really lucrative. I can solve that problem and I can make a lot of money in the process, right? So it starts with an idea. What else do you need, right? Engineering. So you need a bunch of people, whether designers, engineers, all of these people to actually help you execute on that product. So you need to gather a bunch of people who's going to take that idea and actually build that out, right? What else do you need? Design, right? So you got an idea, you get a bunch of engineers together, the smartest people that you can find, you get a bunch of designers together, and you say that, okay, now I have, a great idea, I have a great engineering team, and I have a great design team, right? And let's try and see a typical process of having an idea, having an engineering team, and getting a bunch of designers together. How does that help sort of create a great product, right? So to see how a typical process of creating a product would feel like, let's actually try and all of us design a watch. So we'll take about 3 minutes, okay? And you guys have all sort of papers and pens in front of you. It would be a fun exercise if you could sort of indulge and just try and create something that you might imagine what a watch looks like, right? That you want to wear and you want to basically build as a product. Imagine that you have the flexibility of having a lot of designers, a lot of engineers, and anything that you need to actually make this thing come together. And then we'll actually, at the end of it, see what we've come out with, right? So I'm just going to take 3 minutes and let you guys start off with, just create something that looks like a watch to you, and then try and sell that product later, right? So go for it. This workshop that we're doing now is also something that we do whenever we have a new batch of engineers and designers join us every year in June. And these guys come from IITs and IIMs and all over the place. And I do this exercise internally. So this is actually the second time now I'm doing this session, which is not just for internal consumption, but sharing it all with you guys. So typically it's a day-long workshop where we actually do a bunch of other exercises. So I just wanted to have you guys experience a small glimpse of it and try and sort of absorb something out of that. We'll take just one more minute and then we can continue. Is everybody good? They have something they like? Okay, awesome. So, thanks. So, when we think about, sort of creating a watch, and now that we basically have something that we want to try and sell, and we set up this amazing shop, whether it's online or whether it's offline, and let's imagine that the first person to sort of walk into our shop to try and buy this watch happens to be a marathon runner, right? Now you can imagine, and now you can basically look at what you've drawn and try and compare that will this person be able to use the watch that we've designed, right? And try and answer some questions that, okay, now do I have a product for this particular person? What would we need? What would we need if basically a marathon runner walks in and comes up with his requirements and what his requirements could be, right? What could be? Let's think about them. What would he need? Absolutely, right? First things comes to mind, stopwatch. What else? Distance and time, yes. Say that. Pulse, yes, to know your heart rate. Pedometer, yes, to measure how many steps and how many steps you basically made. Anything else interesting? Should be effortless to carry, yes. Shouldn't be heavy, so that while you're running, you don't want it to, weigh your wrist and so forth. I've got some of those things as well, right? So digital time with seconds. It should be lightweight because you don't want it to be heavy. Should be able to measure distance. Should have a stopwatch, right? Now, how many of us thought any of these things when we made our watch, right? Don't answer that just yet. Yes, I'm sure some of you would be. But let's talk about another example. Let's say that the person who walks in to buy our watch happens to be a scuba diver. Waterproof, barometer, yes. What else? Light, yeah, of course, because you're doing a deep dive, so you need to see time, deep beneath. I mean, it might be interesting to actually say that what if, you don't even need to look at it because, you're sort of diving and you would rather sort of enjoy what the ocean has to offer you instead of looking at time, right? So it might be interesting to just have a haptic feedback kind of a thing to tell you that, okay, you're going past, you're low on oxygen, or you're okay, or you're doing okay, and how much you've traveled inside, right? So digital time, again, with seconds, you need a backlit display. Yes, absolutely. Should be able to measure depth. Should measure water temperature, just so that if you're well insulated and so forth, right? Again, compare it to the watch you might have in front of you and see how that might suit to a scuba diver, right? Let's look at one more example. If it's a celebrity, what would they want? Say that again? Selfie camera, of course. I think that would be true for most of us. But yes, why not? What else? Stylish? Looks, absolutely. Makeup, also a makeup kit. We have a winner here. Yes, makeup kit, sure. So I've got some stuff. Exclusivity, yes, it should be exclusive, well designed, not everybody should have it. Should be expensive, should sort of hold up with what I'm wearing. Color option should go with their bags or clothes that they're wearing, maybe. And optionally, it would be nice if it also told time, right? I mean, they don't care about that so much. That's a completely optional feature. They'll probably have somebody next to them. 2 country timings, yeah, of course, if they're traveling. And hopefully they'll have like a entourage with them to tell them what current time is, right? So as you can imagine, just immediately right after you try and put something in context and something in perspective of a person who's now going to use this product, the world at which you look at your product changes, right? The kind of ideas that you can now think of change, right? In some cases, we went right from showing time to the millisecond, to lightweight, to being stylish and so forth, right to a product which didn't even matter if it showed time, right? Like in just one discussion, we went from one extreme to the other. And that sort of leads me to believe that does having a good idea, does having a great engineering team, and does having a kick-ass visual design team, right? All of us designers here, all of our product maker here, is this enough to have a good user experience, to make a product that's extremely successful? These are the ingredients that all of us work with, right? That we take for granted, that, oh, I have a brilliant idea. Telling time is a great idea. When somebody thought of it, saying that, oh, I want to be able to tell time, that's the simplest and the most amazing idea. And they went out to seek the best engineering team, the best watch craftsmen to be able to build that watch, and the best designers out there to build that watch. But would they translate to a great experience for the users who came to buy that watch, right? Maybe not, right? What we need is we need to understand who's going to use this watch, right? Why are they using it? What are they going to do with it? What are the things that they need when they use a watch, right? And this sort of reminds me of, of a great idea. How many of you all at some point in time would have traveled through Dadar station? All of people in Bombay, right? Of course, all of us would have gone at some point in the travel through Dadar station, right? I used to live in Dadar, for the better part of my life, and the direct eye office back then was in Malad, so I had to take a train every day, go to Dadar station, rainy weather, whether it's summer, you just walk up to this train station. And, well, this was even before I actually started working with direct eye. Even while I was in school, I would basically, my mom would sort of take me to the station and carrying this bag, and then we would sort of go past. And every time I'm actually at the station, I see this really long queue. Dadar is an especially busy train station. And I see this really, really long queue of people, of all ages. There would be kids, there'd be sort of older people, people who are not well, disabled people, all of them standing on this line, queuing up to buy a ticket. There would be like 3 counters each, and there'd be about 3 of such counters. And I would imagine that, they've just walked through this rain, this puddle of mud, they're half wet. All they want to do is get somewhere, either get to work, go to see a family member. And why do they have to stand 1 hour in this queue to get from point A to point B, right? And why hasn't anybody thought about a better solution to be able to dispense tickets? Like, how difficult could it be to get people not to suffer this thing that they have to do every day, day in and day out? And why isn't anybody caring about this? And this went on for some time, and obviously then I forgot about it. And then one fine day, I see this amazing kiosk, okay? Somebody thought of an idea, finally, after many, many years, that, okay, let's put a kiosk over there, which is going to dispense tickets. You buy a card from the teller, you go to the machine, simple, it sounds right, you basically just go and buy tickets. And I was really happy. I was like, okay, somebody finally thought, at that point in time, I wasn't even designing. This is probably when I was in school. And I did not understand, building products. I did not understand design. I did not understand anything. But it just felt like somebody should think about this. I had a pass, so I could just glide through it. But everybody doesn't need to travel every day. And then, why isn't somebody thinking about this? And when this kiosk came, I was really happy. And I was like, okay, somebody did think of this problem finally. And I was happy. Days upon days, passed by, and then I kept coming to the station again, and I saw that these kiosks were left unattended, and nobody was using them. And people would still queue up to buy tickets. And now I'm wondering that how is this happening? Like, why aren't people using this? And of course, that point in time, I didn't even think that it was anything to do with anything at all. I just thought that people were used to something. And I was like, okay, let me go up and try and use it. Like, just try and see how it works. I just got curious about it. It was a new toy at that point in time, so I was just very, very curious. So I went up to it. I bought one of those cards. I refilled it with whatever, $5-10. And I went up to it, and I tried to use it. I stood there for the next half an hour just trying to dispense a ticket for myself. So I first tried to put the card face up, face down, press a bunch of buttons, use the map from where I want to go to where. And half an hour later, I was standing there without a ticket, right? And that's when I realized that many, many years later, I realized that when somebody has a great idea, when somebody really thought about it, okay, people are standing fine, somebody had a great idea. Somebody assembled a bunch of engineers together, right? Somebody assembled a bunch of designers together, and they had a product. They put it out there, but nobody used it, right? There were a lot of things wrong with it. People could not understand. People could not see how to use the map because it was all new to them. The card didn't work. You had to come to an angle, stand down, and basically be able to even read that thing because it was an LCD screen. So that led me to, many years later, realize this thing that I'm talking about today, that just having a great idea, a great engineering team, and a great design team is not enough to build something that people will use, right? If you want people to use your product, you have to involve those people. You have to think about those people. You have to be empathetic about those people. If those designers, those developers, the people who had ideas were made to stand one day on the other station trying to buy a ticket, I'm sure that product would come out to be way different than what that product came out at that point in time, right? So if you are going to solve a problem, that goes back to the responsibility promise, right? That if you are going to be able to build product, if you are made in charge to make a solution, make something that people will use. Not something that you read out of a spec, or this is what my client wants, right? Or this is basically an idea that I think I should build. Like, don't leave it there. See how people are using it. See if it actually changed people's life for the better. So, what defines the experience of a user for a particular product? How can we now tell that what I have designed is actually something that people want, that people will use? It's a simple science. What people need, given their context of use, it's very, very simple. If I am a scuba diver, and when I'm inside the ocean, I'm deep in the ocean, as a scuba diver in the ocean, what do I need? That's a very simple premise. All you have to think about, who's going to come to my website? Who's going to come to my product? How are they going to come to it? What is their context, right? So we'll take some examples of what is context, right? A context could be, why is the user coming to the screen? Where is he coming from? Right? What was the screen before the screen? What does he need here? Ask this question. Why is the user here? What does he need on this specific screen? Which screen did he come from? I'm using examples as screens here, but it could be anything, right? What screen did he come from, right? Is he on the mobile or on the desktop, right? If I'm on the mobile, I need big buttons. I need a screen that works in daylight, right? I need a wizard-based flow if I'm on a screen. If I'm on a PC, I don't mind filling a long form. But if I'm on the phone, I need a step-by-step form if I were to fill out a form, right? So you'll see mobile design is very different from desktop design. Why? Given context. Because on mobile, people are not always on their desk in front of a big screen. They are walking, they're talking, they're in the middle of something. Things like those, right? A great example over here is if many of us have used an iPhone or have seen an iPhone, the only hardware switch, right, that exists on the Apple device, apart from the home button and the volume button, is the mute button, as a silent button, right? Again, designing with context. Because people realize that, I'm on my mobile, I'm on the go, it's going to beep at some point in time. I might be at a meeting, I might be at a wedding, I might be at a talk right now, right? And I don't want it to buzz. So even without looking at it or touching it, I can just simply use the hardware switch to switch it off. So again, designing with context. Somebody thought of that and put that switch over there, the only other hardware switch for that reason, right? Another example that I can think of is the MagSafe charger that come with Macs, right? And people realized at some point in time that when laptops are hooked onto chargers, people invariably trip on them, right? They break their laptops, they break the screens, and one of the most expensive things that is there on a laptop to fix, right? So again, given the context, somebody realized that, okay, there's going to be wires, at some point somebody will trip. So they thought of this idea that, okay, a laptop, any wire attached to it should easily be able to come off when somebody trips on it, right? So that it doesn't bring the laptop down. So many examples that you can think of when you start thinking of the context of the user that they are in when we are designing the product. Another example I have, is a file management a screen, that I actually pulled off of the internet, and we use both these tools. So I thought it was a good example in this context. How many of you know this screen or have used this application and can guess which application this is? This is a project management application called Jira or Jira. Anybody heard of Jira? Atlassian Jira? Perfect. Many of us here have used it and have been victims of this application. Don't get me wrong, it's an extremely powerful application. It can do a lot of things for you, but not this screen. Can you tell me what this screen is for? This is a screen that allows people to upload files and to see files that are attached on the project, right? So that's a file management screen here, right? I will show you another screen in another product which does the exact same thing, and that's this. This is a screen in another system which allows you to do exactly the same thing that you could do in that screen. Based on what we learned right now, can we think about using the content on this screen? Can we think about what are the things? So let's take any one question on this. Why is he on this screen? Let's answer the first question, right? Why is the user on this screen? What are the tasks? Go on. Which files are attached? Okay. See the preview to upload a new file. What else? When we also say that, to see what files, is that really why I go there? Let's get deeper. What do I really want when I come to the screen? Review, but review what? Preview, yes, but why do you need a preview? Exactly, so you can identify a file, right? So when you think of a user task, you're coming here to identify a file, to either download it or to preview it or to see it, right? How can you do that over here? Just one task, see a file to be able to download it, right? On this screen, you have to browse through complex file names, right? Which are very, very small without a preview. And if you want to identify, and if you want to look for a PDF file, say for example, or you're looking for a movie file, say for example, or a zip file, the only way you can identify that and spot the file, that's a primary task on the screen, you have to go through that column which is called MIME type. Who the hell knows what a MIME type is? Some of us do, but most people don't, right? Why is it even called a MIME type? Compare that to this screen. The user is coming to this screen for the same task, to identify a file and to download it, right? See how this screen organizes that information, right? You can clearly see what is a video file, what is a movie file, what is a zip file, and what is a PDF file. So instantly by looking at that screen, you can first get to the right file type. You know that it's a PDF file, right? The file names are extremely clear and bold. That's the only thing that matters on the screen. That's what's prioritized, right? Just like when we were thinking about the scuba diver versus the marathon runner versus the celebrity, right? What do they need the screen for? What do they need the product for? The same thing is happening here. When a user comes to the screen, they want to download a file or they want to upload a file. Two primary tasks on the screen. People at Jira decided to go with this interface versus when people thought about when people listed down the context, the designer on this product listed down why are people coming to the screen? What is their context? What do they want? When you try and ask those questions, you come up with a screen like this. When you try and ask your development team what are the fields in your database that need to be shown on the website, you get MIME type. Because that's what the database has, right? And that's what's going to show up on the screen. So if you do not model your applications based on what people want, and instead based off of the way engineering team has designed it, don't get me wrong, there's a perfect reason why it's called MIME type in the database, because that's what it is. But when it comes on the screen, it has to be thought based on what the customer wants. Now, you might imagine that how frustrating is it? It's okay, once I get used to it, it's fine, right? But that's what I'm talking about. Why should I get used to something that's sub-quality? Why should I spend more than 5 minutes of my life on this screen trying to download? Why? I don't need to, right? I really need that PDF file and I should be able to download it instantly. And that's what happens when you just start thinking about who's coming here, what is their context, what do they want from the screen, and so forth, right? Another definition, this is one of my favorite ones. It's from this book called Notes on Synthesis of Form by Christopher Alexander. Friction is a good measurement of fit. It's a little bit abstract, so let me explain. The minute you see any kind of frustration in people using a tool, it need not be with people using your tool. Just try and use it yourself after you've built it. Whether it's a website, whether it's a hardware product, whether it's a software product, the minute there is any expression or there is any discomfort in trying to use that piece of screen or that product or that website, or the minute you have a thought that, oh, I don't know how this works, or I don't know where I need to find it, the minute you have that thought, that's friction. And if you want to see whether the product that you've designed fits like a hand in glove with the people that they want to use this product, you want to create something that has zero friction, right? It should fit like a glove when people try to wear it, right? So friction is a great measurement of fit. And you can try and basically think about this every time you're trying to design something. That, okay, am I creating friction or am I creating... So Christopher Alexander is an architect. He's also a mathematician. So he's got math formulae to actually try and fix this problem. That, okay, how do I actually get around to it? And he wrote this book called Pattern Language. And this was his PhD thesis that he wrote on synthesis of form. So he imagined that everything that we create, any kind of product, we are creating form, right? We are creating a tangible, something that people use every day. And he came up with this formula which says that for anything that you're building, try and measure friction. And if you measure friction, you will know how well designed that particular product is, right? Can we think about products that you use every day that you imagine are not designed based on context? Now that we have this lens of looking at products, can you guys think of anything that you used which was not designed for context, which was not designed keeping in mind what you wanted to do with that product, and that created any friction when you tried to use that product? Go for it. Government sites. I mean, that's a blanket, unfortunate statement for everything, that you can just name it and it'll be extremely slow, or you can't find anything. Yes? Yeah, the ticketing system still painful, still not designed for people to use. Since you mentioned ticketing systems, it also reminds me of bank ATMs, right? We use them as if they're extremely well designed, and we sort of gotten used to it now. Have you guys experienced when you try to use an ATM machine, and you walk up to it, and some of them have touch screens, right? Some of them have buttons, but some of them also have touch screens. And if you're a tall person, okay, when you're trying to match the name of the option with the button, they're never aligned, right? Have you noticed that? So you're guessing now whether this is a yes or a no, right? And that's a decision point, right? You don't want to spend 5 more minutes to go through the entire process of putting in a card and then punching in the amount, and they're always misaligned. And I was thinking about it, that how did that end up happening? And I realized that the person who was designing the screen was sitting at a 90-degree angle of that screen. So when he saw the screen, he obviously saw the buttons aligned. But he failed to realize that when people are going to use this ATM, they're going to be standing, right? So when they're standing, these buttons are not going to be aligned, and they're going to end up, taking 2 more minutes to think about, and the tiny bit of friction that it's going to create, and it's going to annoy some people, and it annoys me every time because I also have an additional OCD, that why the hell did somebody not think about this thing? But it happens to me, every time I use some kind of a kiosk. What else? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Not really that intuitive. Right, right. No, fair enough. I mean, I think there are some cases where, people might choose to not handle for all cases, and they might imagine that, okay, most people probably have just one account. But yes, I mean, if there is somebody who has multiple accounts, and that's another interesting thought over there as well, right? You will never be able to create a zero friction product, right? Because as product people, we have an essence of time, we have an essence of resources. We can't end up building the perfect product every single time. So we have to prioritize. So we say that, okay, and we make this decision every time we build a product, because we want to be able to ship products as well. We cannot endlessly keep building products. So you prioritize and say that, okay, my 90% of my users are going to do this task 90% of the time. Let me fix that first. And then that's how you sort of are able to also prioritize what design problems to fix first, right? What else? Any other examples? I doubt if that's because of bad design. It's probably lack of knowledge, I believe. But yes, I mean, if there was a better way to make them realize how to use it, it'd probably help too, right? Another one of my favorite examples are these complex showers. Have you guys ever tried to work around a shower? Like hot, cold water, how do you turn on the shower on the top versus down, right? And this is my favorite by far. You know why? Every time I'm visiting a relative, especially when you go abroad and you're visiting somebody, you're traveling, and you go in the shower, and it's embarrassing because 2 minutes later you come out wearing your towel and you're like, hey, I don't know how to work this thing, how do I get the hot water, right? And they would walk in like, with so much pride that, let me show you how. And they walk in and they'd say that, oh, you just have to press this button, and then this thing you would pressure inside, and you have to pull this lever, and that's how you get hot water. And I say to myself that, why do I have to call you to get a shower running? Right? So somebody prioritized the looks of the shower more than the functionality of the shower, right? And that shouldn't be. And I love the pride on people when they come and show you, oh, let me show you how, right? And I'm like, that's just stupid. It's not your fault. So let me tell you, if that ever happened to you, don't get embarrassed. Blame the people who build the shower. Can't they figure this out? Such a simple thing. Can't they get it right? Right? And that's how I feel that when you pick up a product, you should not expect people to read a manual. Gone are the days we all have that uncle, that favorite relative who loves to open a box of Casio gadget and first pick up the manual without pressing the power button, right? We all have one of those in our family who proudly will pick up the manual, some of us here as well, and read page by page and then try to operate the product, right? We don't want to build those products. We want to build a product that a person will take it out of the box, press the power button, and just start using it and delight themselves, right? That, oh, I figured it out. I know this, pressing this button does this. I know it. I know intuitively that's how it's going to work. And that's the kind of product that we want to build, not the one that ships with a manual, not the one that you have to go out of the shower and ask somebody that, okay, please help me how to get the shower running, right? One example that I always have on my slide is this phone. How many people have this phone? Come on, don't be embarrassed, right? So this phone was extremely popular when I was in college, and this phone was also a gaming device and was also a phone. So the proud designers at Nokia thought that let's actually put a game inside a phone. How bad could it be, right? And it was terrible. My friends, when they actually used this phone for gaming, they would love it and they would be so snobbish about using it as a game. And then when somebody called, they would look like this. Because then they couldn't hold the phone properly because they would have to like make their hands really uncomfortable and then can't grip the phone because they would want to press a button right there, which is then going to either end the call or change the volume. So you have to hold it very, very oddly. And it doesn't ergonomically fit to your ear, so you're just always adjusting, how do I use this product, right? And then, you're sitting there and thinking that this is not something that's designed keeping in mind context, right? This was designed for gaming. It's an excellent gaming device, but it's not an excellent phone. So if I do want an excellent gaming device, I'd go and buy it. But if I also want a great phone, maybe not, right? And then today, all of us use this slab of glass in our pocket, right? And that's a brilliant phone as well as a gaming device. And that's the right way that this design would have sort of evolved and that it has evolved. Any other product that you guys want to, take a stab at? Here's your opportunity to get that anger out, yeah? Right.
Which has received many awards for its design particularly and
Right.
usability.
Right.
I had an argument on Twitter with its owner. On that website, many of us would guess, after you do the booking,
Right.
the tick mark which says, I want travel insurance
Oh.
is checked by default.
Oh.
Because of an
that's-
exclusive tie-up with another insurance company.
Right, right.
So we went on a very long argument on...
Yeah. You'll be surprised. I actually had the same thing very recently, and I mailed them. And these are called dark patterns or black hats. This is also something that designers, take very personally, and they don't. These are most likely business decisions, because they want to upsell products and they want to make a little extra money off you. But yes, these are called black hats, and these are called dark patterns that sometimes businesses use, and it's extremely frustrating, to see that additional $500, $400 charge on your ticket. And I remember mailing them and said that I don't expect this off of you guys. I think I'm probably referring to the same company, and I mailed them saying that, why would you enable this by default? It's extremely frustrating.
I mailed them,
Yes.
I got a refusal.
Yes.
And I tweeted,
Yes.
I got a mail saying as a special gesture we are reversing it.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's what I should have done. Instead of just mailing it, I should have probably put it on Twitter. Yeah. Right.
8.1 to 10, all of them,
Right.
they have this problem. Anytime you try to pair a Bluetooth speaker with a Windows
Right.
OS,
Yeah.
you don't have functionality to choose between your earphones or your Bluetooth device. So if you want to try and play it on your Bluetooth device, you might
Right.
play it on your earphones.
You
or
end up
your
playing on, okay.
PC speakers.
Okay, right. Yeah, extremely frustrating experience, right? When you don't want, especially with sound, you don't know where it's coming out from, and it used to happen in browser tabs as well, right? That we don't know which website is making the sound until they actually put a small speaker icon in the address bar to tell you which tab was active, right? So we find these examples every day, when we use these products, and with this lens now, you'll be able to see that when products are designed to your context and when products are not designed to your context. And hopefully, when we all go back and are now involved in making products, I'd encourage you guys to ask that question, that who's using it, why are they using it, what is their context? Just 3 simple questions, to enable us to build products that people will actually end up using, right? I want to lastly, leave you with a small video.
The goal of industrial design has always been mass production. It's been producing standardized objects for consumption by millions and millions of people. One of the earliest examples would be the first emperor of China. He was waging war to try and colonize more and more parts of what would eventually become China. And one of his problems was that each of his archers made their own arrows. And so if, say, an archer died, a fellow archer couldn't grab the arrows from his quiver and start shooting at the enemy because the arrows literally didn't fit his bow. So the first emperor and his advisors came up with a way of standardizing the design of the arrows so that each arrow would fit any bow. Many of the best examples of industrial design are things that people don't think were designed at all. I mean, take the Post-it note. It's something we take for granted that people don't think of it as being designed. And what they don't realise is that from the moment they wake up, almost everything that fills their world has been designed one way or another.
There is a story embedded in every object. Every decision was made at some point about something. This particular toothpick is like a Japanese toothpick, but obviously it's manufactured for sale in the US. But what's interesting about it is it's kind of the evolution of a type of object that happens over many, many years. But you'll notice that the end of it, the tip of it, is serrated, so you could break it off. And this is like to signify that it was used. But it also creates a tiny rest for the toothpick. Obviously, that Japanese-style toothpick has a specific cultural context where that kind of functionality makes sense and that kind of ritual makes sense. That may not be used that way at all in the United States. But what's fascinating about these little stories that get embedded in objects is that I'm reminded of a quote by Henry Ford, who once said, "Every object tells a story."
Most of us use toothpicks and were actually aware of the fact that there was this perforated edge on the top. I wasn't, definitely. Some of us were. And it's a great example because somebody thought about how a toothpick is used and what are the consequences that once you use it, that you would want to keep it somewhere, or that you would want to know that whether it's used or not, right? And again, that's the context. We didn't realize it, and somebody did realize it. I would always, you would find that, if some people use toothpick, they're considerate enough that they would take a piece of tissue and wrap the edge, which went into their mouth, and they just put it down so that it doesn't either dirty the cloth or or somebody might not pick it up. But somebody actually did design the toothpick keeping in mind how it was going to be used and created that perforated edge. And that was quite delightful when I realized it. Of course, I wasn't aware of it when it was made. So lots of examples and lots of stories that we can talk about. Yeah, you wanted to say something? Right.
So every time that we use, we have to just sprinkle it on our hand and then just check whether
Yes,
it's right
yes,
or not.
yes, excellent example, right? Where even salt and pepper shakers, you'd find, so lots of different people use different conventions. So you have, some people would make it white and black so you can easily know, but when they're all metal, like most restaurants that you go to, and then I think you have to remember that whether 3 dots is salt or 1 dot is pepper, because you might imagine that, okay, salt you don't want too much, you might make an error, so it has only one hole, so you can pour it carefully, and then you might not get too much of it. And when there are sort of 3 sort of holes in the bottle, pepper you wouldn't mind like adding a little extra. So that's another way to tell. But yes, the most obvious ones are, would design it as sort of a black and white bottle. There's lots of such stories, in objects, that I find very intuitive and very curious in sort of times that I've come across. And hopefully that you know, if we had more time, we definitely would love to continue hear more stories and tell you guys more stories. But we'll save that for another time. I'll leave about 5 minutes. Do I have 5 minutes? Okay. If we have 5 minutes, I'll leave for questions. You know, if you guys have any for me, I'd be happy to answer them right now.